Have you ever experienced a loss so devastating that it changed the way you saw the world forever? A loss that divided your life into two parts, before and after. Because that's exactly what happened to me. And what my parents did afterward was something I'll never forget. My name is Henry Carter. I'm 52 years old, and until 3 years ago, I believed family would always be there when it mattered most. I was wrong. My wife, Emma, and I had one child, our daughter, Sophie. She was 16 years old, bright, funny, kind. The type of person who could walk into a room and instantly make everyone's day better. She loved animals, loved music, loved making people laugh. And from the day she was born, she became the center of our world. People always told us how lucky we were. The truth was that we already knew. Every parent thinks their child is special. But Sophie truly was. She volunteered at animal shelters, tutored younger students, helped neighbors without being asked. Even when life became difficult, she somehow remained positive. Then one rainy evening, everything changed. A distracted driver ran a red light. Sophie's car never had a chance. The police officer who came to our door looked like he was carrying the weight of the world. The moment I saw him standing there, I knew something was wrong. No parent forgets that moment. No parent survives it unchanged. The weeks that followed were a blur. Hospital visits, phone calls, paperwork, funeral arrangements. People bring food, people offering condolences. People saying things they hoped would help. Nothing helped, because our daughter was gone. The house felt empty. The silence felt unbearable. Even simple things became painful. Her bedroom, her favorite chair, the coffee mug she used every morning. Everything reminded us of what we had lost. During those awful days, most of our family rallied around us. My brother flew across the country. Cousins offered support. Friends helped with funeral arrangements. Everyone seemed to understand the gravity of what had happened. Everyone except my parents. At first, I assumed they were grieving privately. Maybe they needed time. Maybe they were processing things differently. Then I received a phone call 3 days before the funeral. My mother sounded strangely cheerful. Not happy exactly, but excited, which felt completely wrong given the circumstances. "Henry," she said, "we need to talk about the funeral." Immediately, my stomach tightened. "What about it?" There was a pause. Then she said something that didn't make sense. "Your father and I won't be able to attend." For a second, I thought I misheard her. "What? We won't be there." The words felt impossible. I sat down slowly, trying to process what she had just said. "My daughter is being buried." "I know. And you're not coming?" Another pause. Then came the explanation. An explanation so unbelievable that I honestly thought she was joking. My parents had already paid for a 2-week vacation to Hawaii. The trip was non-refundable. The flights were booked. The hotel was reserved. And according to them, it would be a shame to waste the money. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. At first I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it sounded insane. Then I realized they were serious, completely serious. "You're choosing a vacation over your granddaughter's funeral?" My father finally got on the phone. His voice was calm, almost annoyed. "Henry, we're not choosing anything. That's exactly what you're doing." He sighed, as if I was the difficult one. "The funeral is one day." I felt my hands shaking. One day? One day? My daughter had died, and somehow they were treating it like a scheduling conflict. I spent nearly 20 minutes arguing with them, begging them to reconsider, trying to make them understand. Nothing worked. They had made their decision. The trip mattered more. When I hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. Not angry, not yet, mostly shocked. Because no matter how strained a family relationship becomes, you still expect certain things. You expect grandparents to show up for their granddaughter's funeral. You expect parents to support their child after unimaginable loss. Apparently, I expected too much. The funeral arrived 3 days later. Hundreds of people attended. Teachers, friends, neighbors, former classmates. Even people I barely knew came to pay their respects. There were flowers everywhere. Stories about Sophie. Tears from people whose lives she had touched. But 2 chairs remained empty. My parents' chairs, everyone noticed. Nobody asked. Because nobody wanted to make an already painful day worse. Still, I saw the looks, the confusion, the disbelief. And honestly, I shared it. That evening, while Emma and I sat in our silent living room trying to survive another impossible day, my mother posted photos online. Photos from Hawaii. Photos of beaches, cocktails, sunsets, smiling faces, vacation memories, uploaded the same day as her granddaughter's funeral. And that was the moment something inside me changed. Because grief can break your heart, but betrayal changes how you see people. And I had no idea that 2 years later, the same parents who skipped Sophie's funeral would come knocking on my door asking for money, a lot of money, and they would be completely unprepared for my answer. The months after Sophie's funeral were the hardest of my life. Grief doesn't follow a schedule. It doesn't disappear after a few weeks. It doesn't politely leave when people expect it to. Some days were manageable. Others felt impossible. My wife and I learned to survive one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, sometimes 1 minute at a time. Meanwhile, my relationship with my parents changed permanently. At first, I tried to forgive them. I really did. I told myself that people make mistakes. I told myself that grief affects everyone differently. I told myself that holding on to anger wouldn't help. But every time I remembered those empty chairs at the funeral, the wound reopened. And every time I remembered those smiling vacation photos from Hawaii, it became harder to move on. The worst part wasn't that they missed the funeral. It was what happened afterward. Neither of them ever apologized. Not once. No expression of regret, no acknowledgement of how much they had hurt us. Instead, they acted as though nothing unusual had happened. A few weeks after returning from Hawaii, my mother called. She talked about restaurants, weather, vacation excursions, tourist attractions. As if discussing an ordinary family trip. She never mentioned Sophie's funeral. Not a single word. I listened in stunned silence. Eventually, I ended the conversation. After that, contact became less frequent. Birthdays, major holidays, occasional phone calls, nothing more. I stopped sharing personal details, stopped reaching out first, stopped expecting anything. Emotionally, I built a wall, not out of revenge, out of self-protection. Over time, life slowly moved forward. The pain never disappeared, but it became easier to carry. Emma returned to work. I focused on rebuilding routines. We created a scholarship in Sophie's name at a local school. Every year, deserving students received support from a fund established in her memory. It wasn't much, but it helped us feel that some small part of her legacy continued. Then, nearly 2 years after the funeral, my father called unexpectedly. His voice sounded different, worried, tense. The moment I answered, I knew something was wrong. "Henry, your mother and I need to talk." I sat down. "What happened?" There was a long pause. Then he explained. Several investments had gone badly. Very badly. Money they expected to grow had disappeared. Retirement plans had fallen apart. Unexpected expenses had piled up, and now they were facing serious financial problems. I listened quietly. Part of me genuinely felt sorry for them. Nobody wants their parents to struggle, even after everything that happened. Then he finally arrived at the real reason for the call. "We need your help." I wasn't surprised. I had suspected that was coming. "What kind of help?" Another pause. Then came the number, $40,000. I almost dropped the phone. 40,000. Not 4,000, not 10,000, $40,000. The amount stunned me. My father rushed to explain. They would pay it back. They just needed temporary assistance. Family helps family. That's what families do. The irony nearly made me laugh. Family helps family. Those words echoed in my head. Because apparently family helped family, unless there was a Hawaiian vacation involved. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I told him I needed time to think. For the next several days, Emma and I discussed it constantly. The money existed. Technically, we could afford it. The scholarship fund had grown. Our savings were stable. Financially, helping them was possible. Emotionally, it was far more complicated. One evening, Emma asked a question that changed everything. "If Sophie were still alive, what would your parents have done?" I already knew the answer. Without hesitation. They would have helped. They would have attended every recital, every graduation, every celebration. Because Sophie would have been alive, and their relationship with us would probably be normal. But Sophie wasn't alive, and when we needed them most, they chose something else. A beach vacation, a resort, a non-refundable trip. Emma looked at me carefully. "You don't owe anyone access to your kindness." That sentence stayed with me for days, because she was right. Helping someone should come from compassion, not guilt, not obligation, not pressure. A week later, my parents drove to our house. Apparently, they didn't want to discuss the situation over the phone anymore. When they arrived, They acted surprisingly confident, almost as if the decision had already been made. We sat in the living room. Small talk lasted only a few minutes. Then my father got straight to the point. "So have you decided?" I looked at him, then at my mother, and for the first time in 2 years, I said exactly what I had been feeling. "Before we talk about money, we need to talk about Sophie." The room instantly became uncomfortable. My mother's eyes shifted downward. My father sighed, the same annoyed sigh I remembered from that phone call years earlier. "We've already been through this." "No," I said quietly. "We haven't." Because the truth was simple. They had never actually faced it, never acknowledged it, never accepted responsibility. And until they did, there was no conversation about $40,000. What happened next would force my parents to confront a truth they had spent years avoiding, and neither of them was prepared for it. The room was silent after I mentioned Sophie. My parents looked uncomfortable immediately. For 2 years they had managed to avoid this conversation. Whenever her name came up, they changed the subject. Whenever the funeral was mentioned, they became defensive. Whenever anyone questioned their decision, they acted as if they were the victims. But this time there was nowhere to hide. Not in my living room. Not while asking me for $40,000. My father folded his arms. "We already explained what happened." I shook my head. "No, you explained the vacation." "Neither of them spoke," I continued. "You never explained why a vacation mattered more than your granddaughter's funeral." The silence grew heavier. My mother stared at the floor. My father looked irritated. The same expression he always wore when confronted with something he didn't want to hear. Finally, he spoke. "We made a mistake." The words sounded forced, like something he felt obligated to say, not something he genuinely believed. For a moment, I considered letting it go. Then I remembered Sophie's funeral, the flowers, the tears, the empty chairs, and those vacation photos, smiling faces on a beach while we buried our daughter. "No," I said quietly. "A mistake is forgetting a birthday." The room became still. "A mistake is arriving late." I looked directly at both of them. "You consciously chose not to attend your granddaughter's funeral." Neither of them responded, because there was no defense, no explanation, no justification, not anymore. For years they had convinced themselves their decision made sense. Now they were finally hearing how it sounded to everyone else. My mother began crying softly. At first, I felt sympathy. Then she said something that changed everything. "We've suffered too." The words shocked me. Not because grief isn't complicated, because of the timing. They weren't talking about Sophie. They were talking about themselves again. My father nodded. "We lost a granddaughter." I stared at him. Then I asked a question that neither of them expected. "How many days did you spend grieving her?" Silence. "Because I know exactly how many days you spent in Hawaii." My mother's face crumpled. My father's expression hardened. The truth hurts when it finally catches up. For several minutes, nobody spoke. Then something unexpected happened. Emma walked into the room. She had been listening from the kitchen, not eavesdropping, just nearby, and she calmly placed a photo album on the coffee table. Sophie's photo album. The room immediately changed. My parents recognized it instantly. Emma opened it slowly. Page after page. Birthdays, school events, family holidays, dance recitals, volunteer work. Smiling photographs of the granddaughter they claimed to love. Then she turned to the final section. Funeral photographs, flowers, memorial displays, guests, the service, and 2 empty seats reserved for grandparents. My mother burst into tears, real tears this time, not defensive tears, not guilty tears, heartbroken tears. Because for the first time she wasn't arguing, she was looking directly at what she had missed, the reality, the consequences, the moment they could never get back. My father looked away, unable to keep staring, and suddenly I realized something. For 2 years I had imagined this conversation, imagined yelling, imagined revenge, imagined making them feel what I felt. But now that the moment had arrived, none of that mattered. The damage was already done. Nothing could bring Sophie back. Nothing could change that funeral. Nothing could fill those empty chairs. Finally, my father spoke. His voice sounded different, older somehow, smaller. I thought there would be another chance. Nobody answered, because there wasn't. That's the cruel thing about certain moments in life. You only get one opportunity, one funeral, one goodbye, one chance to show up. And they missed theirs. The room remained quiet for a long time. Then my father looked at me. Not as a parent, not as someone demanding money, just as a man facing the consequences of his choices. Do you hate us? I thought about it carefully. Then I answered honestly, no, because hate wasn't what I felt. Disappointment, pain, sadness, those emotions were real, but hate takes energy. And I had spent enough energy carrying this hurt. My mother reached for my hand. For the first time in years, she apologized. A real apology, not excuses, not explanations. An apology, then my father did the same. The words were awkward, uncomfortable, long overdue, but genuine. And sometimes genuine matters more than perfect. Eventually, the conversation returned to the money, the reason they had come, the reason this meeting happened at all. My father looked embarrassed. We still need help. I nodded. I know. Then I told them my decision. I wasn't giving them $40,000. Their faces fell immediately. But before either could react, I continued. I'll help another way. Confusion-related system. I explained that I would pay several urgent bills directly. No cash, no loans, no blank checks. Just practical help where it was truly needed. Enough to prevent disaster, not enough to erase responsibility. At first, my father looked frustrated. Then he realized something important. After everything that happened, I was helping anyway, not because they deserved it, because that's who I chose to be. And perhaps that realization hurt more than rejection ever could. Over the following months, our relationship improved slowly, very slowly. Trust wasn't magically restored. Pain didn't disappear overnight, but effort appeared. Calls became more frequent. Visits became more meaningful. And for the first time in years, my parents began showing up. Really showing up. Not perfectly, just consistently. As for karma, it arrived quietly. Not through punishment, not through revenge, through regret. Because my parents eventually understood something heartbreaking. Money problems can be solved. Vacations can be replaced. Lost investments can recover. But missing your granddaughter's funeral? That is a regret you carry forever. And no amount of money can buy back that day. Today, Sophie's scholarship continues helping students every year. Her memory lives on. Her kindness lives on. Her impact lives on. And every time I attend the scholarship ceremony, I think about the lesson her story left behind. Life gives us thousands of choices. Most are small, some are enormous. And when the people we love need us most, those choices reveal who we truly are. My parents learned that lesson too late. But they learned it, and sometimes that's the closest thing to karma that real life offers. The end